So we've got a POV shot from Tom Holland's rectum. Welcome, my name is John, and I'm just here to discuss movies on the YT. And if you'd like to join that discussion, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and hit that notification bell as well. And today I am discussing the brand new Russo Brothers movie titled Cherry, which stars Tom Holland and was released on Apple TV. Do the Russo brothers only make good movies within the realms of the MCU and blockbuster franchises? Or can they make an epic movie outside of that? Let's get started. So, in Cherry, this guy falls in love with a woman. She decides to leave. He decides to join the army. She decides not to leave, but he still joins the army. Then he goes off to war. He comes back with PTSD, falls into a heroin addiction. His girlfriend falls in with him, and they have to rob banks to keep up with their addiction. And so I guess there is some action here, especially in the war section and stuff, and a little bit with the bank robbing, but there's not too much action here, and it's all pulled off well enough, generically good, I guess. And so moving on to the acting and the characters. Tom Holland gives a great performance, but that's about it. I don't think any of the performances are necessarily terrible, but they're not that great. And even Tom Holland's performance, it's great, but it's not going to be his Oscar performance or anything like that. And so on to the visuals. The entire visual aesthetic of this movie is entirely inconsistent. There's one moment in the movie where it has a completely different aspect ratio than the entire rest of the movie. And on top of that, it's in the worst written, worst performed, worst everything part of the movie as well. And then there's moments with odd blurring effects, and there's moments with like color correction and stuff. And I don't mind like the color correcting when it goes red and shows like part 1 and 2. That's not what I'm talking about. There's some other parts where it has like a sepia. There's like one part where there's like a sepia effect. And there's no consistency to the visual aesthetic to this movie. It just feels like it's throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks. And none of it does. And like the blurring and stuff, yeah, they kind of happen in, I guess, psychological things to trigger psychological feeling things. But the same psychological stuff happens when he's at war, and the war stuff is filmed just like a normal generic war movie. It doesn't have any of that visual aesthetic. And so it just feels visually inconsistent of a movie. So moving on to the story and the writing, I think the overall story idea here is really good. We've seen it done before, but it's still a really good idea. But the actual script and execution of it, I have a lot of issues with. First of all, you have this jarring narration that is very needless. It has no need to be there. There are some moments where it just doubles down on the imagery just to make sure it hits you in the head and that you understand that they're falling in love in that section. You know, it's set like he's narrating that they're at the park and on dates at the exact same time it shows you, and it just feels like it's hitting the head on the coffin too much. And then there are other moments where it does the whole cliche criticism of, you know, telling, not showing. But it's a valid criticism for a lot of movies, and this is one of those cases. But then even tonally, there are sections of this movie that feel like very satire-esque, almost like, weirdly enough, almost like Seth Rogen's The Interview, especially when you get to, especially the basic training section. It's huge satire, and then there's stuff like, there's a doctor who's named Dr. Whoever. There's a bank which is named Shitty Bank. And then there's a bank that's titled Bank Fucks America. And I get what they're going with here. I don't mind that. But the rest of the movie is like played out extremely seriously. You know, it doesn't have like this Tarantino or Guy Ritchie-esque tone to it. It's played out very seriously. And so when you put stuff like that, and then you have that part 2 basic training section, which is like one of the worst parts I've seen in a movie in a long time, personally. And it just comes off very jarringly, tonally inconsistent. And then sound-wise, there's one moment that was very jarring to me, and it has nothing to do with music, actually. It's when he's at war and he's calling his girlfriend on the phone. There's this weird dubbing they do, and they don't go back and forth. It's just her voice is always in that phone call dubbing, but yet it flashes back to where she is, and you're actually in the room with her, but you still hear her like she's on the phone. And it just feels odd, and it's not entirely dubbed right to her like mouth, and it's weird. But you know what? That's one instance that can be nitpicky. Overall, the score and the soundtrack, not to repeat myself from the other sections, feels inconsistent. There are plenty of movies that do a phenomenal job blending a soundtrack with like an orchestral score, but this movie, it tries to do some of that, but it ends up feeling like there's a battle between the two rather than actually blending them. It feels like it can't make up its mind whether it wants a soundtrack-dominated music or score-dominated music, and it feels a little distracting to me because of that. And so overall, there's one word that would perfectly describe my opinion on the movie Cherry, and that is inconsistent. I think the visuals are inconsistent. I think the tone is inconsistent, and I think the sound is inconsistent. The only thing that is consistent is the acting, and apart from Tom Holland, that's not necessarily a great thing. And so this was a huge disappointment for me. This was like my second most anticipated movie of the year. I was really looking forward to seeing what the Russo Brothers had to do. Granted, at the time, I was thinking it was like a Bonnie and Clyde type of movie where Clyde had a war background or something. That's not entirely what this is. And so stylistically, this is just a movie that throws a bunch of stuff at the wall, hoping something sticks, but nothing does. And it's a huge disappointment. It's only a couple months into the year, but for me, this seems like a safe bet to possibly be the most disappointing movie of the year, at least for me. And it pains me to have to give Cherry just a 2. Thanks for watching this video. If you have seen Cherry, go ahead and share your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this review, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and smash that thumbs up icon, smash that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell as well to stay up to date on my videos. I do review series, currently a monster movie one and a Zack Snyder one. And so, stay tuned, and I will return next time when I see you again.